Right, hello ladies and gents, just a quick tutorial based on something we're doing at college at the moment. What this is all about is creative EQing and learning how to use an equaliser for an effect. In this instance, we're going to be turning a piece of standard dialogue taken from the BBC News. I'm going to make it sound like it's coming down a telephone. So in doing so, we're going to learn about parametric EQing, going to learn about the Spectrum Analyser and how to listen for and spot different frequencies within a timbre, or should I say a sample. And let's just give it a blast and see what we've got.
Some people will point to welfare cuts as an example of ill intent on the part of the Conservatives. Plenty of Labour campaigners will do that. He says, and he's in a drier place than I am right now, he says what you're doing is you're doing down the departmental spending because you need to find...
Right, that'll do for now. I mean, the stories may be interesting to you, maybe not. I'll put the link and the information for you to go and see the whole thing because the guy's umbrella kind of packs in on him as well, so it's quite entertaining. I'm sure the story isn't, though. Right, you may have heard all sorts in there. This guy is talking on a blustery day. So first thing we're going to do is see what we can do to try and reduce the impact of some of the noise in the background. I think the BBC have already done something. They want to do it quick because it's more or less live. It sounds to me nowhere near as bassy on the wind rumble as you'd expect when you get wind down a microphone. But certainly if I were to isolate this bit round here, you'll hear... Right, but you hear that kind of... What we're going to do is try and reduce the impact of that first before we do any kind of creative EQing. So what I'm going to do is go and find my parametric equaliser. So you go to Effects, top here, Filter and EQ, and down to Parametric Equaliser. The reason why, well, I'll just reset it from the last time I used it. To reset, go to Presets and Default, and you'll get a flat line here. Right, the reason why I use the Parametric Equaliser is because Parametric Equalisers allow you to pick any frequency, all your frequencies across here, and adjust it any way you want to. It's fiddly, it will take a little bit of getting used to, but unlike the Graphic Equaliser, let's just find one of those. A 30-band graphic equaliser. These are really effective as well, but each one of these is a bandwidth, so therefore when you reduce one, you're reducing a chunk, and you don't really have any control over that. If you're doing something drastic like a telephone voice, it's actually probably quite effective using a graphic equaliser. Yeah, the main reason I'm using the parametric equaliser is because you've got the full control, but also when you play, you'll also see all that pale blue there? That's a Spectrum Analyser. It's telling you what frequencies are being used in this particular recording. So, as you will see by looking at this, the actual frequency range of this recording is virtually the entire audio spectrum. Now, the audio spectrum is everything that the human ear can hear, from the lowest of the low sound to the highest of the high. So in this case, the lowest of the low sound that a human ear will ever be able to hear is 20 Hertz. I mean, I can't hear that, but it's right down here. That's 20 vibrations per second. And the highest of the highest sound that a human will ever be able to hear is right at the top end of the spectrum here is 20 kilohertz, 20,000 vibrations per second. Again, no chance of me hearing that. My ears are pretty poor, as my students will tell you. But when you're younger, hopefully your hearing's better and you'll hear more than perhaps when you're a bit older. This takes up, as I say, virtually the entire spectrum. So what I'm looking for, though, is somewhere along this kind of graphic representation, a peak for the sound of the wind. May not find it because it's almost like white noise, which covers quite a broad spectrum. But let's have a little look. So round here is that little bit of dialogue. Is there? And also up here as well. It's really hard to see. Let's see if I can get rid of that little bit of dialogue and just put the actual noise in. And I've still got that bit of dialogue, haven't I? No, it's really hard to tell. As I say, it's almost like white noise. It's covering the entire spectrum. Certainly some stuff down here in the sub bass that you don't need, because it's not going to form part of the dialogue anyway, so we can afford to get rid of some of that. So what I'm going to do is just shut that up for a minute, because it gets annoying, doesn't it? Is I'm going to use the high pass filter, or I should say here it's the low cut, and I'm going to bring this all the way down to the bottom. So that was on about 40 hertz. But as I say, when you bring it down, it's bringing down a lot of other frequencies with it. So I'm going to go and have a look down here. Down here it says Q and width. Q is short for quality. And with the low and high pass filter, so that's the high pass filter, that's the low pass filter. I know it's the other way around. It's actually saying low cut and high cut here. You've got two options. You've got one which is tighter. The other, can you see that? So I prefer the tighter one. You have more control over it. Let's see. That's already taken out quite a lot of the vroom, 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 vroom sound. But has it upset the recording?
He says, and he's in a drier place than I am right now, he says what you're doing is you're doing down the departmental spending, because you need to find deeper cuts.
It's taken out a slight bit of bottom end from the dialogue, but seeing as we're going to be doing telephone voice anyway, it's not too terrible. To be honest, if you were doing this kind of dialogue for a movie or something, you'd just go and find a quieter place to record. You wouldn't use this dialogue, or you'd go and do dialogue replacement in the studio. But also in news report, something different. It's very a snapshot of here and now, so people working on the news have to do the best they can to reduce the impact of wind, rumble and other background noises in impromptu reports such as this one. I'm just going to normalise this to bring it back up to peaking at -6. Helps keep. Oh, looks like the last one I worked on I did -3. It must have been a sample library. Right. Oh, there we go. It's gone down ever so slightly. Means that I've got 6 decibels of headroom to do whatever I like with, because I will also possibly put in some compression on this later. Who knows? Or some other effects. I'm now going to go to the graphic EQ, because I think this is going to do a better job of the telephone sound. I'll pick the 30 bands because it gives me more detail. Now, a telephone is a tiny speaker, and therefore what makes it so distinctive, it's almost like listening on a pair of cheap headphones from Poundland or something. The sound that's being forced through a small speaker, and therefore lots of frequencies are lost. But these speakers are also designed to make dialogue quite clear. So, ironically, I'm quite deaf, but I can hear people clearer on the telephone than I can in real life. A little bit ironic, because they're designed to just push through the frequencies that are required of the formants of people's voice, the shape of words, and a little bit of the tone. And that's generally around the mid-range frequencies, or the higher mids, more to the point, because there's not a lot of bottom end when you listen to the telephone. So look, we can get rid of all the bottom end straight away. And what we could do is just keep playing it. Get rid of that music bit, so I don't need that.
Will point to welfare cuts as an example of ill intent on the part of the Conservatives. Plenty of Labour campaigners will do that. He says.
Can you hear it's already thinning out?
He says, and he's in a drier place than I am right now. He says what you're doing is you're doing down the departmental spending, because you need to find deeper cuts.
Going to muffle it slightly by taking away some of the top to make it sound more like a bad speaker. Now, some speakers give you this push certain frequency around about the 1K mark. It's almost like a resonance. I'm going to try it, see what it sounds like.
In spending in government departments.
There is.
In real terms, that means spending on things like schools and hospitals. I might give up on that. And you would do if you didn't protect welfare. So
I'm only going to put a little bit of it in, but it gives it a slight bit more authenticity. And look, there we have it. It's like starting to sound a bit like a telephone speaker. You could possibly add a little bit of distortion to it to make it sound like a really bad speaker, but here we're talking about EQ only. Obviously thin out a bit more if you want to.
There is a choice to be made here between welfare spending on the one hand and departmental spending.
That sounds more like a transistor radio now. I think I preferred it before with those two frequencies in.
The real stuff of public services that we see and know on the other. And he says that.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So there we are. Going to apply that. That's changed the waveform considerably. A little bit truncating. I don't want that music at the front, because you wouldn't have someone ring you and then play the BBC News theme tune now, would you? So
some people will point to welfare cuts as an example of ill intent on the part of the Conservatives. Plenty of Labour campaigners.
I'm sure that's exactly what your mum sounds like when she rings you. There we go. How to make vocals sound like they're coming down the telephone. Thanks for watching.